So Dave, this is cycling and bike racing is a serious business. I've learned that from my husband, who is a cycling enthusiast, um, and I don't dare interrupt when he is watching any of his favorite cycling events, whether it's the Tour de France or any of the other major tours that he watches. So I know this is serious stuff. And yet, many of us can enjoy it, even if we're not enthusiasts or like serious bike racers, right?
Well, of course. I mean, when talking about the sport from the perspective of a bike shop owner, we have a variety of types of clientele. We're a family bike shop. We sell plenty of bikes to moms and dads and kids, of course. We do sell bikes to enthusiasts, road bike riders, mountain bike riders, commuters, people who are just looking for some sort of fitness that allows you to use a bike. We don't discriminate against a certain type of person. We do pride ourselves on our expertise, and a lot of that expertise has to do with the type of riding that we call enthusiasts, the person who gets all dressed up. Many people see them on the roads and sometimes find them frustrating because they're riding in a lane that a car is in. But we all have seen that person. But that person is goal oriented usually, whether it's for fitness or for an event. There are a lot of mass start events that are like perhaps that 5K race I was just referring to, where they are timed and it is not about being in a group and racing in the more traditional way bike racing um, is structured. So a lot of the customers that we've seen over the past 10 years, 5 years, are gravitating towards that because it is much more inviting. It's more social. It allows an individual to have a goal and to work towards it without being involved in the bike racing scene per se. So we very much want to encourage people to ride the way they can get the most out of the sport. There's no right or wrong.
Well, I
Uh,
love the flexibility of the sport, right? So if you're a more of a solitary rider like my spouse is, that's great. Just wants to go out and meet his own personal goal and, call it a day without much socializing. And yet, as you've mentioned, I love that there are opportunities for people who have a much more social focus with, with the sport. So it sounds like there's room for everyone at
yeah,
the table. So that's
yeah. I mean, the sport is, for many people, the sport is very therapeutic. So, taking your husband as an example, there is the fitness aspect, but many people will ride, alone. And it's meditative. It can be meditative. Like running, there is endorphins that are released. Those endorphins help to, give people calm and peace throughout their day after exercising. I mean, I have to assume anybody who exercises, regardless of what they're doing, understands how that can be valuable to them, especially in we live in such a stressful society. So, yeah, I mean, as you said, there's so many different ways to enjoy the sport. And, as a shop owner in this community, we want to encourage people to enjoy the sport in a way that works best for them.
I love that. I love that. One of the things, it's interesting because running in many ways, doing triathlons, etc., is in so many ways linked to cycling, right? So for instance, I for a long in my younger years, not so long ago, like you, I was a track athlete, but I was much more of a sort of a one and done. Like give me that 100, 200. I just want to kill it. I want to
Right.
go as fast as I can and beat everyone and just kill it, right?
Yeah.
Right? And as I aged, I started to appreciate the endurance aspect of running,
Sure.
taking on more training for starting with a 5K, then moving on to, half marathon and sort of like I think that was my top. What happened over the years, however, is that the impact started to tell on my joints. And so, I've started to look into sort of endurance sports like cycling that
Yeah.
will give me, right, that the physical, the exercise benefits of going long distances without as much impact on my body. And so I'm thrilled because I'm being pulled along in some ways by my bike enthusiast
Yeah.
husband, but I'm looking forward to this spring getting on my brand new bike that I got from your store and getting some miles in. So it's very exciting that we have the
Yeah.
opportunity to continue as we age, right? So can you talk a little bit about, cycling as a tool for aging in a healthy way? Is that something that you've seen people do in
Oh, of course.
community?
So, like, the example you've given about, yourself, we do see a lot of men and women come into the store, and whether their doctor suggested it or they just recognize that the impact sports that they had done previously, whether it's basketball or running, especially anything that is hard on their joints, cycling is a non-impact sport. So you're going to be able to get cardiovascular health. Um, you're going to be able to do some muscular efforts, although because it's a non-impact sport, it is really important to cross train. And I am a big proponent of seasonal cross training. So in the, what can be considered the off season, winter, the cold months, I always recommend that people should be lifting weights.
Why that's so important? Why is it necessary?
Well, so as a non-impact sport, your muscles are not being used in a bodybuilding way. And it has been proven that as we age, we lose muscle mass. And actually, regardless of whether you run or bike or really do nothing other than weightlifting, weightlifting, in my opinion, should be a part of every person's health routine as they age. Because by the age of 40, you start to lose muscle mass if you're not using your muscles. 50, it really starts to increase. And it's fairly obvious when we look at elderly people who don't exercise, how they shrink. We
Hmm.
talk about, the joke among many people is, I'm shorter than I was 5 years ago.
Is it inevitable, or do you find that engaging in certain sports like cycling can delay the shrinking?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, it's all inevitable. We all have a finite time here on this earth. The question that I ask myself and suggest people consider is, how they use that time. And as we age, the quality of life we have in the latter part um, of our life experience. And, a lifetime athlete is fortunate enough to can be able to build on that, but anyone at any time can start. And that person who is maybe riding their bike once or twice a week and perhaps going to the gym and lifting weights in a way that they feel comfortable doing it,
Mhm.
they're going to stimulate blood flow, they're going to stimulate bone growth because of that resistance that weightlifting does, and it's going to complement the cycling. You're going to be able to ride faster,
Yep.
um, and frankly enjoy it more. I always, when I was racing, for as long as I could remember, my off season I spent doing very cycling specific weightlifting.
So, what's cycling specific weightlifting?
Okay, so one could go to the gym and use weights in all different ways to create bulk, or, to lift so that your muscles are ready for the activity that you're about to do. People who play football lift weights a certain way. People who play tennis lift weights a certain way. For
Mhm.
cycling, it's a lower body core based weightlifting, squats, deadlifts, leg raises, curls, all sorts of core work, some upper body work. It's good to be well rounded. So, in the years that I was um, focused on my off season weightlifting, I'd come into the season stronger and, as we say, able to turn a bigger gear. Turning a bigger gear, you go faster. You're able to really control the bike with much more efficiency. So I've seen the pros and cons of not weightlifting.
Got it.
And
Got it.
frankly, as I've aged and in the past couple of years haven't been racing, I've kind of moved away from racing. I see from personal experience how, moderating my participation changes me physically.
Yep. Well, that's incredible advice, actually. And I don't think many of us know the importance of that. So, certainly something that I'm going to take into consideration as I re-engage in this sport. And I say re-engage because as a kid, we all had bikes when we were younger. Many of us, you know, uh,
Yeah.
enjoyed riding. In my country, where my husband and I come from, for many years, people got around with bicycles. That was one of the main modes of transportation. And now
Yeah.
that has gone away, right? You go back home and the amount of cars that have taken over the roads and also motorized, like little mopeds, have taken over. And I wonder about the long-term impact of that on the population health. Anyway, that's a whole different story. I can go down that road, but I want to get into a little bit the business, right? Because
Sure.
we haven't fully introduced you as the owner of Montclair Bikery.
Yes.
So you tell us a little bit about how that came to be. So you mentioned earlier that you were looking for a group to get involved with, and you ended up at the Montclair Bikery or whatever it was called at the time. And how is it that you're the owner of that place now?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty fun story. So I mentioned how I've been participating in this sport, my whole life. And yes, I was looking for a new place to live in 2000, 2001. And I was single, and I had decided that I was going to pick a community that had a bike shop that supported a bike racing team. And there are a number of them in Bergen, and mostly Bergen and Essex County. That's where I was looking. And I had gone into the Montclair Bikery knowing the community, and I met the owner at the time, and I talked with him, and I didn't have any other restrictions. It was just me. And I said, well, this seems like a nice town, and this seems like a nice shop and bike club. So why not? And I moved to Montclair down on Claremont Avenue,
Hmm.
and I was in another profession. I was working in newspapers,
Hmm.
worked for the Bergen Record, and did that for 10 years, raced with the club.
Yep.
Over those 10 years, got married, had a child, and what precipitated my interest in owning a bike shop was somewhat practical. I had always liked the idea of working in a bike shop. Had worked for a short time right out of college to make a couple bucks. There was some disruption in the newspaper business, which frankly has continued. And I was young enough to try something new, and I met up with the owner of the Montclair Bikery, a different owner than the one that I spoke to
Yep.
10 years prior. And he and I talked, and I expressed my interest in someday owning a bike shop. He and I worked out an arrangement where I would work for him,
Hmm.
and then over time we'd work towards me taking over the bike shop. And this was 2010. Well, lo and behold, he had a more accelerated timeline than me.
Uh-huh.
So early 2011, he had said, well, you want to buy the shop, which was quite a bit earlier than I expected or had anticipated. So, it's one of those things. I was able to cobble together some money, family, as well as loans. And by November of 2011, I owned the shop.
It's a great example, Dave, of be careful what you ask for. You might just get it.
Yeah,
And I love that you talked to him about someday. Like you had this desire, down there somewhere, and you talked to him about someday owning the shop. And
yeah.
sometimes that happens a little faster than we all expect, but voila, here you are.
Yeah, I mean, I think the timing was right, certainly for him. The economic climate in the country was conducive to taking a chance on entrepreneurs. There was money available. And, this is my finishing up my 13th year or in the middle of my 13th year, or
Congratulations.
14th year.
Somewhere in there, between
Yes.
13 and 14, and congratulations. It's been a long ride. What would you say has been the highlight of being the owner of Montclair Bikery?
Well, I didn't realize, I knew I would have a relationship with the community in some capacity because I knew the history of the shop. I didn't realize how much impact I could have on the community. I was very, very aggressive in fostering the bike racing that I had experienced when I was a member of the club. And for a very long time, uh, there was a very vibrant bike racing team associated with the shop
Hmm.
that I was an integral part of, facilitating. And that was, I had a lot of pride in that. I had a lot of people who I'd like to think got a lot out of it. That's probably one of the bigger things. I think on a very personal level, doing something I never really planned in my life doing, which was, you know, owning a business, running a business, being responsible for, my staff and their, financial security. And, I'd like to think I was fairly successful and at growing the business and creating an environment where my staff felt like they had a good place to work.
Yeah, seems like you've been very successful at that because whenever I stop in, the staff you have are, first of all, I mean, they're just professionals to begin with.
For noticing and
Oh,
sharing that.
totally, totally. They love the sport. And, I feel like part of what you guys are able to do successfully is just customize the service to the level of expertise, I should say, or the level of interest or the type of buyer that's coming in. So kudos to you on,
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
along,
That's wonderful to hear.
no, it's true. It's true. And along those lines, what would you say is a must buy product from your store? I know it's hard to say because you have so many different types of people, but basic. What's a must buy product if you're getting into the sport? What is the one thing that you walk into that shop that you gotta have, that you must buy?
Well, a bicycle,
Without the bicycle, you're not doing nothing.
the must buy. I mean, really, that goes to how the individual is going to, use the bike,
Of course.
which goes to how we sell our bikes. We have a philosophy that I have a philosophy that I share with my staff and ask them to make sure is conveyed to the customer is that we're not selling a product, we're selling an experience.
Hmm.
A bicycle is a tool
Love that.
to achieve, whatever that experience you want to have. And it's very important to me that when a customer comes through our door, that we're not talking to them about a specific bike at the outset of the conversation, but we're talking about why they came in, what they wanted to do with their bike that they were interested in purchasing before we got into any of the specifics about a bike. There's ultimately we're selling a product, but if I were to sell a product and sell a bike and it wasn't based on what the customer was going to do with it, I would be doing a disservice to that customer.
Well, that's why you guys are so successful because you begin with a consultation. You begin with an assessment, right, of what we need and what we're going to do. And I experienced that when I walked in there to buy my first sort of what I would call a professional bike. Pretty fancy one to boot. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that is like the number one, the golden rule of successful customer service businesses is like begin with where your clients, your customers are at, right?
Yeah, I mean, prior to owning the shop and during my tenure here, the industry itself had always understood that many people who walk into any bicycle shop, can be intimidated by the staff, by the equipment. And ever since I've, you know, bought the shop, I wanted to make sure that whomever walked through the door, regardless of gender or ethnicity, race, feels welcome here because they're a bike rider or they want to be a bike rider or they want to just make a family member happy by
Mm,
purchasing a bike for them.
mm.
I'll talk to you all day about the intricate details of a fancy racing bike. I can go, deep down you know, that rabbit hole.
I'm sure.
But if that's not why a person's in the shop, you know, let's talk about why you came in.
Yeah, very good. Very good. That's where you start. And then I'm sure because, in part because of the kind of relationship building that your staff engage their clients with, that sort of lends itself to creating a community there. So, and I want to talk about that. I want to talk about how has the Montclair community benefited and continued to support the bikery over the years as you have taken it over.
Yeah, well, one thing we're extremely fortunate. This community, regardless of this bike shop, is very fitness motivated, very environmentally conscious, which are two very important factors when, we talk about individuals who want to ride a bicycle. So, as a bike shop owner, our bike shop has a leg up in that regard. Not every community has people, members who think about these things. We have a lot of people that ride their bike around town to get around town. They will use it to go food shopping or, pick up their kids. E-bikes have helped facilitate that. We always have new families moving into town. This is it's a huge destination for young professional couples who are starting families. And new families will want, bicycles to ride around. The geography of the town, the way the roads are set up, lends itself to riding. These wide boulevards that go north and south, Park Street, Grove, Valley aside. Valley is kind of a crazy road, but
Whole different story.
North Mountain, um, all the little town centers. It gives people this opportunity. So the community, I can make the argument that the community has helped us. And by association, we want to facilitate their experience. We have had very specific situations throughout my tenure where the cycling community has come out and helped the shop. We do an annual charity event called the Turkey Ride, which um, is the goal is to help the Human Needs Food Pantry. And we have a number of people that are not employees of the shop who are very instrumental in making sure that this event is successful. And by association, the general public, we have 300 people that come out and we do this 15-mile ride around town that culminates with purchasing a turkey or more, um, and delivering it to the human needs food pantry. We had our most successful year with over 10,000 turkeys purchased, $30,000 donated,
Amazing.
and well over 200 participants. I think we were close to three. So again, that is the community, well, helping the community, but also making this event successful.
And so that's, I mean, that's part of, as you've mentioned, it's really part of what makes our town so special. You know, that your bike shop has become like a spoke in the wheel of the Montclair community. And that's what we
Yeah.
do a lot. We engage in activities that are symbiotic, right? And mutually supportive to meet needs in the community. And it comes back to you, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very well said. There are other events, we are not in,
By the way, when is your turkey ride?
it is always the Sunday before Thanksgiving.
Got it.
Um, the bike bus, people may not be familiar with this. Yeah, it's essentially, this grassroots program that's, I think nationwide. We have a very vibrant group. This is parents and their kids riding in tandem up and down the streets to get their kids to school by bike. These are individuals that, have embraced the sport, and we support them, and they support us. That's, another example, as you put it so well, a symbiotic relationship. There was one instance which is kind of near and dear to my heart, which quite a while ago, I had the business for maybe 3 or 4 years. The old shop that we had apartments above it. Long story short, there was a flood. It flooded our store. It was March.
Hmm.
Um, really bad time coming out of a slow season into our busy season. We needed to fix this quickly, and our the landlord was very responsive, but it required a lot of help, and the Montclair cyclists specifically were a huge help. They came out and did a lot of the yeoman's work of moving items. We were able to survive that, not in small part to the fact that people were willing to volunteer their time to
Yeah.
do the shop, and that that was very heartwarming.
That story, it is indeed heartwarming. And that is a story that I've heard over and over again from business owners that were affected by the same flood at the same time. And were it not for the kind of community that we are here in Montclair, where customers and clients just came out and even went as far as doing GoFundMe for, I have restaurant friends who were affected by that massive, really
Yeah,
destructive situation. And so I think it just speaks to the pulse and the heart and the soul of Montclair. So we're really fortunate to be here. And we're fortunate to have Montclair Bikery. We're fortunate to have you and your staff who bring such both expertise, but also passion to what you do. This is not, like you said, you guys aren't just selling products. You're selling experiences, and you're such a vital part of our community, and we're very
thank
grateful
you.
for that.
That's very
Is,
kind of you to say.
oh, you're so welcome. What advice would you give to put yourself back when you were, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago when you were just a budding entrepreneur? You fused this passion with practical need, the family, and your love for cycling. There's so many young people that are in the position that you were in back then and looking to start something, looking to start a business. What advice would you give them?
Well, I can come up with some advice for sure, but the one thing I would say is that no matter how much you prepare, there's no way to fully appreciate all of the challenges and unexpected situations that come up. So, in that regard, being motivated, whether it's passion or desire to create something, is arguably one of the most important things, along with perseverance. As a goal oriented person, I often look at things as, being successful or not successful. And, this is a cliche that I'm sure many people have heard. Failure is one of the best lessons that I've had. And trying to, appreciate that failure and to learn from it. Uh, I've made a ton of mistakes along the way, but I'm proud of the fact that I haven't made those mistakes either again or multiple times. Being
Yeah.
very introspective and conscious of process and improving
Yes.
and trying not to have an ego that
Mm.
will sabotage you.
That's powerful. So, what I'm hearing you say is number one, expect the unexpected. Number two, get ready to dig in and go deep and have grit, right? If this is something that you really want to have staying power. And just, know that you're going to have failures, and failures are, an opportunity to learn. And so I think that's amazing advice. Thank you so much for doing that.
You're
And
welcome.
before, where do clients, where do customers, where do newcomers find you online, your website, your socials? Just give us your handles.
Sure. I mean, it's www.montclairbikery.com for our website. Instagram is Montclair_Bikery. Facebook is Montclair Bikery.
Well, I'm so excited for the spring. I know you guys are getting ready for spring as well. And I got
Sure.
your newsletter with spring readiness tips. So thank you for the support that you have given to my family with the services that you guys provide and to the talent that you guys bring to the community and all that you do to support our community. Thanks so much, Dave. Looking forward to seeing you soon.
Yes. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with the Montclair community a little bit about me, the bike shop, of course, and just being able to give a little insight into how things have evolved here.
Congratulations. You're doing a terrific job. Talk soon.
Thank you. So long now.
Bye-bye.